We're talking Ukrainian drone exports.
and the U.S. Navy's large-scale exercise.
Welcome to The Breakout. I'm Aaron Mehta.
And I'm Lee Farron.
Lee, let's talk about Ukrainian drone exports.
We should. Why?
Because they don't really exist.
Right, which makes sense. They're in the middle of a war.
They're in the middle of a war, but if you listen to Ukrainian companies, there's a lot of concerns about this. So Colin Post, who's our freelancer in Kiev, wrote a piece for us a couple weeks ago about the challenge that Ukrainian companies are having and why they think this might be the moment they can kind of break through what they describe as a soft embargo on exporting out of the country.
Right, so it makes sense that as a nation at war, the politicians especially wouldn't want anyone exporting defense capabilities. But the Ukrainian drone makers kind of argue that this could be done in a way that would help us.
Yeah, their argument is if we could export, we could bring a lot more capital in, we could expand, we'd have more money to kind of bring things in. But there has been, again, this soft ban. There's no legal rule saying you cannot export,
Right.
But there's a requirements that are going to get met, and those have not been met to this point. You talk to people in the industry, and they say, somebody said it's Schrodinger's drone sales,
Oh,
right?
right.
It's, technically it's not being refused, but it's not happening.
Right, but there's a special case out in Denmark that might give some idea of how this could work in the future.
Yeah, so there's a couple of moving parts right now in this moment. The first is there have been increasing investment from EU, NATO countries saying, hey, we will put money in to help you produce factories in Ukraine. Denmark's gotten a little creative, and what they've said is, we have an agreement with a drone company in Ukraine. These will be produced in Denmark, and that's important because Ukraine's factories are frequent targets for Russian weapons. So we'll produce it, and then we ship everything back to Ukraine. But if there's ever a peacetime situation, the drones that are produced in this factory in Denmark can then be bought by the Danes for their own use.
And that would be, of course, the exports that the companies are looking for.
Exactly. So it's kind of an interesting workaround. The other aspect to why this might be a moment for this is that there's been talk from Zelensky, the Ukrainian leader, about a mega deal with the U.S.
And what does
drones.
that encompass?
Yeah, it's a good question. Nobody really knows. The most detail that's come out of it is Zelensky said he wants to sell $10 to $30 billion worth of drones to the U.S.
It's a lot of drones.
It's a lot of drones. What sell means is unclear. Is there kind of a co-production where they're produced in the U.S.? Is there some sort of leasing agreement? Is they basically a trade of drones for missile defense? Nobody really knows. But again, the Ukrainian company has told our reporter that, hey, we're hopeful this can kind of jump things forward.
And it certainly comes at a time when the U.S. Defense Department is looking to get its hands on as many drones as it possibly can, as quickly as it possibly can. So, should there be a ceasefire? Should there be some peacetime agreement? You can imagine industry across Europe is going to be willing to sell as soon as possible, especially the one with the most experience in drone warfare at this point, Ukraine.
Yeah, we saw an order from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth a little bit ago saying everyone basically in the army should have drones. There's definitely a focus on small drones because of what's happening in Ukraine. It makes a lot of sense to just go and get the stuff that's being used in Ukraine if that's what you're trying to model it off of.
There you go.
So we'll see what happens with this going forward. For now, we're going to leave Ukraine aside and we're going to talk about the Navy when we come back.
Why not?
At Leonardo DRS, our agility helps bring the ability to dominate in any scenario, on any platform, helping our warfighters accomplish the mission and get home safely. Leonardo DRS, our agility, your advantage.
I'm joined now by Justin Katz. He's our ace naval reporter. Justin, you were just down in Norfolk and you got to check out the large-scale exercise, which is...
Yeah, large-scale exercise is the U.S. Navy's preeminent global exercise. This is the biggest one they do. It encompasses basically the entire fleet. And the biggest goal of large-scale exercise is for the Navy and the Marine Corps to test how would they actually fight together if a global conflict broke out. The United States has been in a lot of regional conflicts, but it is not very often that the entire fleet gets strained at the same time.
Yeah, although certainly plausible given everything going on in the world at any time. So this is the third time that the Navy's run this exercise. What were some of the takeaways?
Sure. So the biggest takeaway that I found when I was talking to officials is that the Navy is trying really hard to bake in the casualties. So what does that mean? That means that if an aircraft carrier is participating, then it's entirely possible that the planners are going to tell them, you know what, your aircraft elevator has just gone out. So now run through the steps to try to fix it. Now that's kind of a an artificial impediment, but they're also using real-time fleet data. So officials said, if a destroyer was supposed to participate in the exercise, but now it's been retasked to go do a real-world mission, okay, that's now part of the strategic thinking. How are you going to execute your mission inside the exercise without the use of that destroyer? So it's all about baking in the casualties and making it as realistic a strain on the fleet as possible.
It's really interesting. Something that stood out to me from your reporting is that the new CNO, Admiral Caudle, had developed some sort of new system that they very specifically brought into this exercise.
Yeah, so it's really fascinating. We were talking with the exercise director, and he was explaining to me that in 2019, Admiral Gilday, then the CNO, tasked U.S. fleet forces with creating a global maritime response plan. He didn't call it that at the time, but that's basically what he was doing. Admiral Caudle has been taking the lead on that for the past several years as U.S. fleet forces, and now he's the new CNO. But the Global Maritime Response Plan, again, it all focuses on how do we balance priorities. If a destroyer is needed in the Pacific Fleet and it's operating in a different area of the world, can we take it out of that area of the world? How does that impact the priorities in that area? What would it mean for the Pacific Fleet if it doesn't get that destroyer? Again, it's all about how is the Navy operating globally and how do we balance the priorities of every AOR at the same time.
It's a lot of complex moving parts across the whole world. So thanks, Justin. You can see Justin's reporting on the site. In the meantime, make sure you like and subscribe to The Breakout to get it delivered to you every week. And Justin, we have a podcast.
Do we?
We do. Justin's not a big podcast guy. But you can find us if you look The Breakout online at any of your podcast providers. I'm Aaron Mehta.
I'm Justin Katz.
Thanks for watching.